I got to say, Appetite for Distortion is probably the best name for a podcast I've ever heard in my life.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 363. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Rachel Bolan. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, man. Thank you for having me on the most awesome named podcast ever.
I was trying to kind of keep a straight face and be professional for the intro, but just right before we started recording, and it's on the podcast version because at least I'm recording on the audio side.
Okay.
My listeners know it happened with Dave Kushner from Velvet Revolver. I lost like the master tape. And I had to redo the interview. So I've always have a backup going. So I was kind of chuckling to myself as I'm doing the intro because you complimented the name of the podcast, and I'm like,
it's awesome. Appetite for Distortion. That's great.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And I think, you know why? We're getting off on a great foot right away because we're both Northeasterners, right?
I'm a Jersey guy.
And I'm a Queens guy, New York, you know.
There you go. Hey, look at this guy.
I'm a real New Yorker, and I don't talk like that, you know.
Yeah, I know, right? And I don't say New Jersey either. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're from Jersey?" I'm like, "No, Jersey," but that's fine.
Jersey, yeah. But I kind of want to start there because this is going to sprinkle some. I want to sprinkle in fan questions because not only am I excited, my listeners are excited for you to be on Appetite for Distortion. So
awesome.
This is from all the way from Greece, Connie Pat, who, by the way, is, I believe, 15 months sober. So mazel tov to Connie. He's like, he's a Jersey guy, Rachel. The natural thing is to ask him about the Sopranos. So is that like a rite of passage? Like for me, I've seen every Seinfeld episode, 7,000 times.
I've seen every Seinfeld. I have never, ever seen the Sopranos.
You know what?
Honestly.
It makes me feel bad because I have, but not all the way through. I've seen like 70% of it, and I thought I was going to be judged by you. No, you're Jersey. Wow.
No, I've never actually. I didn't even know really it took place in Jersey until I saw the intro once, and I was like, "Oh, that stuff kind of looks familiar." And I'd hear Scotty and Snake talk about it all the time, like especially when it first came out, and then they both revisited it, and So I heard about it a lot. I could probably tell you certain storylines, but nope, never saw it.
Okay.
Never saw it.
That's how I am with Star Wars.
See, I've seen Star Wars. I was a late bloomer. My buddy John, who lived next door growing up, he was full on. I didn't see it until they like re-released it years and years later. But now I'm like a total geek with it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Because I asked because it's cool with this Appetite for Distortion podcast. And I'm in Queens. This morning, I was just at Q1043 in New York City, as board hopping and producing the morning show. So I have a New York base, but I have listeners everywhere. And it's just cool to kind of get the taste of culture everywhere just through this podcast. And I just think of New Jersey, though. We have so many listeners at Q104 from New Jersey. And it's just like, I don't know the cities like I know New York.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go back to, because I don't know New Jersey like I know New York. What was little? I know it's not really Rachel. You're little, but what was little Rachel like? What was in New Jersey growing up?
Yeah, grew up in Toms River, not far from Seaside. I mean, once I got older, I used to hitchhike to Seaside, to meet friends and stuff like that. When hitchhiking was safe, I don't know, but yeah, and grew up about a mile from the bay, from Barnegat Bay, and about 3 or 4 miles from the ocean. Never a beach guy. Went to Seaside, went to the boardwalk, never really, except when I was a little kid. My mom and dad would bring us to the beach, to Seaside Beach, or we go down to Point Pleasant. I go because I live in Tennessee, but we also have a house up in my hometown of Toms River. And so we when we go, I probably go to I don't go on the beach. I'm just not a beach guy, as you could probably tell from my tan. We still go to Point and hang out, and I love the food. I miss the Jersey food, man, like the pizza and the clams in the summer and, you know, the oysters and all that stuff. Seafood is a little different down here as like pizza and
Sure.
just, you know, you could go to a pizzeria and get the best Italian food you may ever eat in your life. And it's kind of hard down here, but, yeah, you know, I just used to knock around with my friends. My best friend growing up lived right next door. He's still in Toms River, and my other buddies started, you know, a lot of them still live there. Started my first band in Toms River. We played in my parents' garage, you know.
Because Toms River is, as a New Yorker and as a baseball fan, I know it's huge with Little League baseball.
Yep, big time, big time.
So what made you, I guess, because you weren't a mobster, weren't into the Sopranos. You're not an athlete. I don't know if you look like you're in good shape, but I don't know if you're an athlete like that. But so how did you go towards the guitar as, you know, in New Jersey? How did you first lean towards this path that we're on?
You know, it's funny because when I was a kid, you're kind of conditioned to be an athlete. And I just really wasn't into sports. I wrestled a little bit, played intramural football. I played Little League, and I wasn't very good at it. You know what I mean? Sometimes I had fun, but that whole hardcore jock mentality was just not for me. You know what I mean? So I was never really into it, but I was always a really creative kid. And that I come from a long line of creative people, like starting with my brother and my, you know, everyone does a little bit different things, you know, like my sister, one of my sisters, very like crafty, like Martha Stewart crafty, and she creates stuff that is just like, wow. And even growing up, she would paint, and my brother would build hot rods and create in that way. And you know, my dad he would paint, and he built houses. So a long line of creative people, my uncles and whatnot. And I loved creating. For me as a kid, modeling clay was the be all end all. I would build everything out of modeling clay. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then music came along, but there was always music in my house because being the fourth out of four kids, there was music coming out of every different room. You know, I have one sister that was into the whole British invasion. My other sister was into like folk music, James Taylor, Carly Simon, Melanie, all that stuff. And my brother was into Hendrix and Zeppelin, The Doors, Chicago, Miles Davis. And then along I came, and I see a picture of Gene Simmons. My friend lent me Kiss Alive. And I look at the picture of Gene Simmons. I didn't even know what a bass was. And I remember going down to the kitchen and saying, I want to play what he plays. They're like, the guy with the blood all over him. I was like, yeah. My mom's like, did he get hurt? So, and you know, there was a guitar in the house that I used to just mess around on. Didn't know what I was doing, but eventually when I guess I was about 11, I picked up a bass. My parents got me a bass for Christmas, and that's what kind of started it all. And I started I took lessons. It was too much like school. I hated school, even though I really loved my teacher. He was really nice and patient, and but I didn't want to play the things that he was teaching me. And then, you know, back then I could read music. Now I wish I could read music. Not that I really have a use for it, but there's going to be so many musicians that are going to hate me for that comment. But I
hear that though. I feel like I hear that though, that musicians, at least the ones that I like, don't normally typically read music. It's just a feel for it, and I'm envious.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, I know what notes are what, and I know scales, some scales, and I just like, from a youngster, I just, you know, listen to people like Gene Simmons and Paul McCartney and Dennis Dunaway and James Jameson. And I just listened to stuff like that. And Roger Glover from Deep Purple. And that was the kind of stuff that got me in motion, you know, to be a bass player and to understand what the bass was and what its role in music was. And then, you know, then I got into punk rock, and that like kind of changed everything. I'm like, wow, they're like, even though some punk rock basses are just ridiculous, like Graham Maybe and guys like that are just like insane. But you got the guys like Didi Ramon and guys like that just hold it down, but it's a different kind of energy. And
Sure.
I would always kind of try to bridge the gap between the two. And that, I think that's where my style kind of came from.
I'd have to imagine, because just from the few minutes I've been talking to you off and on the air, you seem like a very humble person. So you're naming all these legends that inspired you. Now, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to age you, but you are a legend to other people. Yeah, I expected that reaction. So that's why I set up that way. The eye roll, just like, just me. But I want to read another listener comment. This is from Matt Tomska. I believe you're from Poland. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm looking on Facebook. It doesn't always say.
Right.
He says, I don't have a question, but I hope you can tell him that he's one of the main reasons why I play bass, and one of the best, most interesting and amazing sounding bass players of all time. Wow. Okay, I do have a question, and pardon me, but there's no way of putting it. How the fuck does he get such an amazing sound where he can both cut through and be noticed in the song, but at the same time keep the bass low end roll unaffected? Sorry, fanboy moment right there.
Well, first off, I appreciate the comments. He that never gets lost on me, because I remember meeting Gene Simmons for the first time, and he had said something to me, and I was like, no way, you're absolutely nuts. I said, man, you're the reason I started playing bass. And he was so cool about it. And he goes, someday somebody's going to say the same thing to you. And I go, yeah, thanks, but I doubt it. And then we started talking about all these people I just mentioned, with the exception of him. And then he was telling me about his favorite bass players. And we talked for about a half an hour about bass players. And in my head, this is like on the Bon Jovi tour in '89. And in my head, I'm just like, what is happening? I'm talking to my idol, the guy that got me started I'm talking shop, but I really appreciate that when people say that. So when that happened for the first time, I was like, wow, God damn it, Gene was right. I appreciate that. And the basses I use Spectre basses live pretty much exclusively, and in the studio I use Spectre and Fender P basses. But what he said is like the bass cutting through, but not getting in the way, but having that low end was intentional. Because I guess because of the guys that I mentioned that really shaped me as a player, they stood out. They stood out in the mix. They weren't just pedaling through everything, and they weren't just a sound. They were still an instrument, and I wanted to be like that. So just kind of honed in my sound, and I use solid state head. I use the GK 800, the RB 800. And I went from SVT 810s to Orange 410s, and I found that gets even more clarity, but I could keep that low end rumble to things. And, that was all intentional. That was all very intentional to do that, so that it would be there in the mix. And, when you stay till the last day of the mix, you make sure it's in there.
Yeah, right on. Absolutely. Because I've heard that story too, people being replaced in mixes and not being the way that you want it to be.
Yeah.
And to, I guess, jump on Matt's fanboy moment, I don't know if it's gotten the screen yet. I have a Skid Row shirt.
There you go. Nice.
They make fun of, because you're quote unquote that guy if you wear the name of the band, the shirt to the show. That's the old PCU joke.
That's funny.
So what? I wear the name of the band of the people who I'm interviewing. What? I'm a nerd.
It would be really bad if I wore a Skid Row shirt. That would be that guy.
That's very true. And what's even worse, and I'll admit, because that would be bad, I got this at Hot Topic in college. So
there you go.
Years ago. But because and again, not to age, because again, you're seasoned. You're a seasoned veteran. I'm not aging you, but I got into Skid Row just a little late to the party. I can't help it. I was born in '83.
Okay.
And I think you started the band, in '86?
Yeah, I got to first together with Snake in '86, but the first record didn't come out till like '89.
I mean, sorry, I had Muppet Babies. I really had a Muppet Babies cassette, and that's, I'm sure, it took me time, but I remember the moment when I discovered Skid Row, and I want to talk about it and ask about it. And so I'll credit another listener at DC Flow Laser Machine, Mike on Twitter. I was a huge fan of Saturday Night Live. I grew up watching Saturday Night Live with
Me too.
Adam Sandler and Chris Farley and Kevin Nealon. It was just a great core of just actors that went on to be movie stars and mega stars. And it was just that seeing Skid Row on SNL, you didn't usually see hard bands. And the way you all had your hair in unison, I thought that was the coolest fucking thing ever, man. And I still talk about that as one of my favorite SNL performances.
Oh, thank you.
I would love to hear that, about the SNL experience, how you guys got booked, and just if you can tell me about it.
I mean, like you said, I mean, I grew up, I remember when the first SNL was aired, and it was Saturday, obviously, and I was allowed to stay up late, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is so different. And I remember sitting there with my dad, and we were just laughing so hard. And we're like, this is so different. And the fact that it's live, and what was cool is my dad, cause they were 40 years older than me, I was a whoops baby. So it's like, so he grew up listening to live radio, and then TV was live. A lot of it was live, and then it went away from that. So he was so psyched that it was back to being live, or at least the show. So we were dying laughing. And as the years progressed, just all the bands that started playing Saturday Night Live, you had the Stones, and then Blondie, and African Bambaataa, and like they'd go like to pop, and then kind of just like stuff that we would have never heard of if it wasn't on Saturday Night Live. And it was just really cool to watch that. And as a kid, especially being in New Jersey, where New York, I could, if I wanted to really see it, I could go, and see it. It was a dream. It was, before there was a term bucket list, that was at the top of my bucket list. And I said, one day I'm going to play on this show. And I'm like, well, I guess I have to learn how to play something first. No, actually, at that point I played, but, it was, just something to watch. All the people, Elvis Costello, that performance was legendary,
Band for life.
Yeah, Band for life. Fear was on there, Band for life, you know what I mean? And it was just, all those bands that were on there were just blew my mind. So it was something I wanted to do. Okay, so fast forward to, what was it, 91, I guess, or 90, I'm not sure when we were on. And our manager called and said, hey, we got a call from SNL. They want you guys on. And we found out that G. Smith was the guy that said, let's get some rock on this show. Let's get Skid Row. It was him. And I guess, I think Jim Pitt was the guy at the time. Agreed. So I had heard that, and I was really happy I got to personally thank him. I met GE, and I met a lot of those guys, and I got to personally thank him. And I was really happy about that, because he made a Jersey boy's dream come true in a big way,
He added, that's cool, because I remember, again, being a fan growing up with that, G.E. Smith going to every break, and then growing up and realizing how accomplished a musician he was, and just, he's not just a Saturday Night Live guy. He's a
badass. He's a badass.
He is a badass. Yeah. And I wanted, before we get to the new album, Sorry to Live in the Past for a little bit.
No, it's all good.
But I want to talk about
I was there.
I know I wasn't, so I got to ask. Because not just one of the best performances, I mean, Monkey Business, my goodness, but one of the best skits you were a part of.
Kitty Metal.
The ABCs of Metal, where
that was so great.
Adam Sandler was Axl Rose, and Kiefer Sutherland, the host, was Slash.
Yeah.
And they're singing Mother Goose songs, trying to get this kid to bed.
Yeah.
And then, Skid Row comes out, you come out. Can you talk about that? Was there a rehearsal to that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. G and I was actually playing bass and G was on the stage, and I don't know if you've ever been to those studios, but
I have.
You have. Okay. So you have all the sound stages on one side, and then you have the scenes across from it. So we're in that room that they built, which is across from the sound stage, and G and I kind of had a line of sight, and I had a wedge that was just a monitor that was just out of sight. And so we were playing together, and he's like, here it is. Here's the notes. And I mean, so he's like, let's just punk it out. Let's do it like Ramones. I was like, got it. And we did it, and we rehearsed it a couple times. And then when we went live, before we went live, actually, the set director was like, okay, you could smash that. You could smash that. Don't smash that. We need it for another skit. Don't smash that, And it's like, I'm like, man, I'm in my head, I'm like, once I get smashed, I don't know if I'm going to remember what I can and can't smash. So yeah, it was really fun. And that little kid was a blast. I mean, he's probably 30 now. You know what I mean?
That's true. But, I didn't think about that.
He was really cool. He was really fun. And it was great. That whole experience, man, meeting Chris Farley and Adam Sandler, like actually Adam and I hung for a little bit after that.
Cool.
A few times, and he was super cool guy. Dana Carvey,
legend.
Was he there?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he might have been the tail end of that.
I think it was the tail end. Yeah, but and then Spade was hilarious. That dude is so funny. And then Phil Hartman. So
rest in peace.
Yep. Yeah. And so we were, what were we doing? I'm not sure whether it was, I think it was because you record it once, right? You go through everything, you record it, just in case. And from what I was told, I don't know whether this is truth or not, but from what I was told, ever since the Sinead O'Connor thing happened, they record a show, and if something goes bad, they just replace that with the pre-recorded. Okay. So, and what they do is you go in and they have a whole audience there, and they also go in and it's like, that skit fell flat. Let's use skit number 2 that we rehearsed, blah, 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 blah. It was a lot more. It was really cool to see the inner workings of the show. But, Phil Hartman. So we're doing the goodbye at the end. And then I realized at some point, I was like, he's Captain Carl from the Pee Wee Herman show.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
And so we're talking at the end, and I'm standing next to him at the pre-recorded wave goodbye, right? We were all in different spots on the actual one, but so I'm next to him and I go, you were Captain Carl, weren't you? And he goes, that's right, Pee Wee, like that. And I go, Captain Carl, did you wash your hands when you went to after you went to the bathroom? He goes, no. And he put them on my face right out of the HBO Pee Wee Herman special that I saw like 9 billion times, right?
That's hilarious.
And that was my interaction with Phil Hartman, and I'll never, ever forget it. Ever. It was the best, man. It was the best.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
And just to ask and then to wrap up this part of it, because you knew, or no, I don't, I'm not privy to your life like that, but Axl and Slash. Mm-hmm. So what did you think of their impersonations? And do you know if Axl and Slash or Slash saw that?
I don't know. I'm assuming they did. I mean, we're all around the same age, so they probably watched it. But yeah, it was pretty great, man. Like Adam Sandler, he sunk into the role, man. It was so great. Just seeing him with the straight hair. Oh man, it was pretty cool. And yeah, Kiefer Sutherland, it was supposed to be a drunk Slash, and I don't think he was that far off the mark. But I don't know. I don't know that for a fact. He was a really cool dude. He was
gotcha.
Really
Oh, I appreciate you sharing those. And this is the segue. I'll use the Slash segue because I believe the producer for your new record, Nick Raskulenix, I have that right. Okay. He worked with Velvet Revolver. So there you go. That's my 6 degrees.
There you
So
go.
the gang's all here. So we've talked about it. You started, Skid Row '86. You've been playing music for longer. To come out with a new album, what is it feeling? Is it nerves? Is it exciting, anxious? Is it all the above?
Pretty much all the above. Not so, maybe not so much nerves, but to be this far into a career, right? And to be this excited about something that we did. And more than that, for people and our fans to be this excited about something we did this far into a career is a really cool feeling, man. I can't even really describe it. It's okay. So you work long and hard at stuff, and your career will have highs and then lows, and then sort of highs and then lower lows and whatever. And we got to a point now at the beginning of this year, everything changed because we got a new record label, which happened kind of in 2020, I guess, ish. Got a new record label, we got new management. And then right around February, got a new singer, Erik Grönwall. And it just all came together, and all came together in the weirdest way, and so quickly that my head is still kind of spinning from it. I'm still trying to process. I think once the album is actually out, I'll be like, okay, it's not a dream. You know what I mean? And just the feeling of it, just the anticipation for it to come out after everything we did to get this record done, and to get to work with a guy like Nick, it's an amazing feeling that's kind of indescribable.
That's cool, because a lot did come together, and I got to be, I have to admit it. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I wasn't aware. I know Skid Row. I've always been a fan. I'm, wearing the shirt forever. I guess wasn't. What other band am I like with Guns N' Roses? With Guns N' Roses, like I'm following them like that. But with Skid Row, I guess wasn't expecting this. And then this record, the singles that are off it, Tear It Down, Gang's All Here, and this new singer Erik. I'm just like, okay, what is this going to sound like? And it sounds great. It sounds
Thank you.
Old school, and it's okay. Maybe I have that opinion. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a Skid Row fan, and I go on YouTube, and you know what? Guns N' Roses does this. They turn comments off, and I get it. People are mean, and not like you want to use the internet as the barometer for everything. But I just went to your YouTube 5 minutes before this interview. So many great comments of just like this is like the Skid Row is back. It sounds like the old days, and everyone's rooting for Erik. And
yeah,
what does that mean to you? That it's not everyone's rooting for this man, these men, I should say, and this band in the year 2022.
It means a lot. It means everything, actually. We were under a microscope, and we still are to a degree, but we were under a microscope, and the scrutiny was just ridiculous and unwarranted. You know what I mean? We were doing what we were doing. We're in a rock band. People saying, hang it up, give up. People, and I'd sit there and think, I'm like, it's pretty funny that people are just saying, give it up, hang it up, this and that. It's like, okay, what do you do for a living? Say you're a roofer, give it up. You know what I mean? You're telling someone to give up something, their passion and all that. So at first it kind of bothered me. And then just in talking to other guys, like friends that are in bands and popular bands, are like, dude, go on any message board anywhere. Go on the NASCAR message board. Go on baseball for a team. Go on their message boards if they have one. It's the same shit everywhere,
You're
man.
Right. You're right.
It's the same shit. People just can't help being like that. Some people, not all people, of course.
Sure.
But it's like people just can't help it. They here is their platform to get noticed, whether it's just one sentence, 1 second, whatever it is. Here's their platform to get noticed. And then it was funny because then eventually the term haters came out. And I have a theory about haters. Kind of like they should all know that there's probably 99.9% of us that read the comments for sport. And we get a lot of laughs out of them. I don't think that's their goal, but for a person to go on a public forum, granted, they're not buying ad space on TV, so it's not that, but for a person to go on a public forum to just purposely degrade and criticize a complete stranger. They may have followed the band, but if we ran into each other, I wouldn't know that person because they're a stranger. For them to
they would tell you what kind of big fan they are if they met you in person. They would say, I love you. I love everything you do.
You know what? You're probably right. So for them to go on and spend all that energy and that time to sit down and tell someone how much they suck is like, how miserable of a bastard do you have to be to do that? And when they go to bed, they're that miserable bastard. When they wake up the next morning, they're still that miserable bastard. The big difference is when I go to bed and wake up the next morning, I'm in Skid fucking row. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes, I know exactly. I talk about this all the time, especially in this Guns N' Roses themed podcast where people like want certain band members, which I know we're kind of referring to, but it's the same thing because I'm a sports guy. Oh, the Yankees should get back Murderers Row 1927. These guys are bums, and they're in first place, and people are hating on the Yankees. You know that being a New York, New Jersey guy, it doesn't matter.
Of course.
Giants to win the Super Bowl, and they suck. It's just you're right. It's like you have to understand that kind of energy, but it's also realizing there are people out there that let it affect them. So it's cool to know that there are a lot of like you can laugh at it. But there are some emerging artists and it affects them. And you know what? Sometimes I'll see a comment about me and it could affect me. So,
and here's the thing, too. It's like, at times I'm like, man, I kind of feel sorry for this person and not like in a pathetic way, but I'm like, what is their life like? I start thinking about it and I'm like, wait a minute, they're talking shit about me. Why do I care? You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter.
But it doesn't. And you can't let stuff like that affect you because you're doing what you love. You know what I mean? Hopefully they're doing what they love.
You're right. You're in Skid fucking row, and here I am talking to Rachel fucking Bolan.
There we go, man. Life is goddamn good.
It is, and the gang's all going to be here October 14th. Check out the video for the singles. There's 2 singles out right now. Or is there could it be another one?
We have a third one coming out.
Okay, that is cool. Before I let you go, I just gotta ask, since this Appetite for Distortion, hopefully I'll get you on again. Do you have maybe a fun, quick GNR touring story? I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not a very sensationalistic person, but if you saw Slash running naked in a hallway or anything that kind of
no, I didn't.
Okay.
and that's probably a good thing. I don't know. But I mean, I think this is my funniest story. When we started the tour, Izzy was still in the band. But he wasn't traveling with the guys. The guys, they were flying, and Izzy had his own bus, and with his brother, his dog, and his girlfriend at the time. I think they may have got married. I'm not sure. It's a long time ago, but so he had a trailer behind the bus that he had all his motorized stuff in it. He had, dirt bikes and BMX stuff, and he had a trials bike. And I'm not sure if you know what a trials bike, but they're a motorcycle, smaller engine, kind of built like a dirt bike, but there's no seat, and it's all about skill with it. And these guys go up onto like these platforms and drive, and they have to bounce on the back tire. Oh. It's all really hard. And I was a fan of that. And I had noticed he had it and he was washing it outside his bus. So I went up and I was talking to him, and we talked about, motocross and trials, especially for, I don't know, almost 2 hours. And it's like, okay, cool. And I was like, he was a cool dude, man. He was like really cool, so low key, and obviously a very talented guy. So Duff comes in like, I think it was the next morning, he comes into our dressing room to, he was looking for cranberry juice, I think. So he's like, can I steal some of your cranberry juice? And we're talking. I go, hey, dude, Izzy's a really cool guy. I go, we spoke for like 2 hours. And he put the bottle of cranberry juice down. He goes, how long did you talk to him? I go, I don't know, like 2 hours. He goes, dude, I think the whole band collectively hasn't talked to him for 2 hours in like the last year. And I was like, all right, sorry. I didn't know what to say, but I got a good laugh out of that. But yeah,
you weren't a band member, so I guess he wasn't tired of.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I don't know the dynamics, but
sure.
He was a super cool guy.
Oh, right on. And so were you, Rachel. Thank you so much
man.
for your time. I hope we get to do this again, because I also want to give you credit for starting the nose piercing trend.
That's funny.
Have you noticed this? That everybody and literally their mother has like a nose piercing now. It's like it's become so popular. Sorry, I could say this for next time. But
yeah, no, it's fine. It's funny. When I lived in Atlanta, I had a buddy who he was a tattoo artist, and he said that to me. He goes, man, I've been a tattoo artist for a long time. And he goes, after you did that, he goes, granted, there was that counterculture of people that had it, but we didn't do it. You couldn't go and get it done somewhere. Everyone was doing it the way you did, with a safety pin, and a potato shoved up your nose. And he's like, after you did that, man, we started piercing noses like crazy. I was like, good, I guess. I don't know. But what's funny is I pierced my nose because of Peter Burns from Dead or Alive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what made me pierce my nose, because I just thought that guy was very intriguing, man. His whole vibe was really intriguing.
It's just something, because I'm a tattooed. I only have my ears pierced, but I'm like, I know Slash has had one for a while. You've had one, especially connected to your ear, but I'm looking around, and it would always just be like a novelty. You see, for me, I would see like a girl with a nose piercing or something, and I'd be like, wow, or septum. Now it's like everybody. So I don't know who's a rocker who just got it at the mall.
I know.
Whatever. I'm married now.
Are you a bass player, or are you my lawyer?
Kinda. Rachel, thank you so much.
You got it,
and tour updates, skidrow.com. It's on the sheet that I got, but not on your website. So I don't know if you're going to the Kingston, which is like a couple hours north of me. Maybe I can go there, but
I think that went away.
Okay.
Yeah,
but okay. All right.
You're
going overseas, Denmark, UK. My God, you're touring. I got to catch you next time.
Man. I think the closest we get to you is like Salamanca, New York, which is a little south of Buffalo. That's pretty far from you.
The only Salamanca I know is from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Oh, okay.
For those who got the reference, good. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, you'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.